Thank you very much. So last time we discussed what is artificial intelligence, because you can basically think about a lot of different things, right? So what can pop in your minds? Well, we can think about, for example, ChatGPT, or we can think about Gemini from Google, but we can also think about specific AI models that are used to come to a specific conclusion. And then also the question is, can AI reason like a human being? So these are important things to keep in mind, and we can see AI is developing quite fast. And we are talking today about systems that can perform tasks that typically require human intelligence. So we can think about learning, problem solving, decision making, but also understanding language. For example, there are tools that can help you to understand a different accent in a better way, which is quite interesting. So we can communicate better with one and each other. So there are different AI models, and today we're going to discuss the different type of categories and how the legal framework works. So last time we discussed the Europeans AI Act, and it's basically a proposal designed to regulate AI across the European Union. Why is this important? Because it must be focused on a human-centric approach. It serves the social well-being of us. It should not be used against us. But it's also really important to create a trustworthy environment, ladies and gentlemen. So if we use AI, it should be using qualified data, because if you create an AI model, for example, the AI model is basically running on the data which has been put in. So for example, you create a prompt, you put in data, then it will process, and then there will be a specific output. It's really important to understand how the AI model is working and whether it's processing trustworthy or qualified data, because that determines the output. So what you put in, how the AI model works, is creating an output. And it's really important because if people make decisions based on an AI model, we try to ensure it's safe and protected. And we can see many things are getting more and more digitalized. This is also why a specific type of models have been prohibited, which we will discuss later today. So now, why did Europe came up with the Europeans AI Act? Because we need to have specific safeguards, and we can see there is a lot of attention right now for AI. Many people interested in creating different AI tools because we can digitalize maybe much more than we think. We can work more efficiently, but we also need to have a specific type of process that will be followed by the companies to ensure that we work together in a safe digital environment. If we put in data, will it be scattered all over the place? Or what will happen if, for example, a company has a data leak and all the banking details are all over the place? Who will be held liable? If I will create a painting, for example, that is a copy of a copyrighted work, can I be liable for copyright infringement? These are all really important aspects to think about. So what we can see here is we have a very digital future. I think we are in a digital future already, but we still need like a legal framework that will ensure safety for each and every one of us. Because if there is no regulation, or if there is no legal framework, then it's difficult to hold anybody responsible or liable for any act or omission or a breach. So it's basically shaping the entire global legal framework on AI, and the European AI Act is setting the global rule here. So as we discussed last time, it's important to think about why we must regulate AI. And this is important to ensure safety, but also to protect fundamental rights that are protected in Europe, and also fostering innovation, because what we can see, for example, in the States, many tools are developed and published on the market, whereas Europe is usually more regulating. So Europe is usually a bit more slow, a bit more behind, if we can say, because we have different frameworks that we have to comply with compared to the States. Um, we also want to build trustworthy AI tools, and we want to set global standards. So it's important to regulate AI to ensure it's used in a safe way and not, for example, against human people, because we want to focus on the human needs here and to work together to make the lives easier. For example, think of a better medication or another tool that could help you perform specific types of services. But it should be in a safe and trustworthy way. And this is one of the most important pillars we have in Europe. So last time we discussed the question shortly if you think it's important to regulate emerging technologies like AI, or whether we should leave innovation completely unrestricted. I'm curious, for those who have missed the last lecture and perhaps joined us today, can you maybe share your thoughts with us? Do you think we could leave innovation, be left largely unrestricted, because then innovation could go faster? Or do you think we need to have legal frameworks created by the government, for example, that we all have to comply with? Maybe you can share a pro and a con in the chat so we can discuss your thoughts today. I will give you 1 minute to think about the question. You can think, for example, of a recruitment process. If we want to hire an employee, would it be beneficial to have an AI tool without any restrictions? I don't see any comments yet, so I'm going to proceed. It's important to understand that when we think about AI tools, they can also bring significant risks. Oh, we have one hand here. Cici, can you unmute yourself, please?
Okay. Okay. Is important the government to regulate the AI use. First point, and not to let people using AI unrestricted. We have many consequences of this because anybody can stand up in morning or night or day or from the lab and do how they call invent something like without restriction. So maybe going against the human being, going against the technology. I mean, going not respecting, comply with the rule, the human social rules, and like when we have the bomb, maybe they make the bomb like this to go to destroy the people, maybe through AI or to monitor whatever with no regulation. There are so many consequences. That is my point of view. That is my point of view.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing your point of view with us today. It's really, it's very true, right? There are many consequences.
Yes.
If there is no legal framework or no monitoring, it'll be really difficult to hold anybody liable, right? And it can have severe consequences. I see we have one more hand or two more. Ismail, can you unmute yourself and share your thoughts with us too, please?
Hello? Yeah, hello?
Hello.
Yeah, can you hear me? Good morning.
Good morning. We can hear you.
Yeah,
Excellent.
yeah, thank you. Actually, from my own perspective, I guess legal framework is important, is good, and at the same time, it should be resisted by the government for perfect control of the AI, because without control or discipline, you can tell, I can tell, they will mix it up, I'm telling you. So I'm not against innovation. Innovation is good, but that should be restriction too. So this is my view.
Yeah. And can I ask if you think innovation is good, like how could we best foster innovation and not slow it down while creating legal frameworks? Do you have any idea?
Oh, you mean the question is directed to me?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, innovation is good, but there should be legal framework, because without this, believe me, they will abuse it. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, thank you, Ismail. Thank you
Yeah,
for sharing your thoughts. It's really important indeed to have regulations and also to protect our fundamental rights and also think of rights like privacy, non-discrimination, and even perhaps the core functioning of democracies. So thank you. I
you're
think
welcome.
we have one more hand here. Tsitsi, can you unmute yourself as well, please?
So thank you very much. I think there's need to have a balance to while promoting innovation, it is also important that AI is regulated so that there is progress. For example, clear guidelines on ethics should be in place to avoid things like bias, intrusion into privacy, and also to promote accountability. So for me, there should be a balance. We can't say government should not regulate AI. No, it is required, but at the same time, the same government should also promote innovation. Thank you.
Thank you, Tsitsi. Yes, it's not only about technological like advancement, right? Technology must be fostering innovation. So we need to be able to create and develop new tools, but we also need accountability, right? So we should think about AI tools that can serve the human well-being. But if we would leave it largely unrestricted, that could mean that there is no accountability or maybe no security anymore. So thank you for sharing your thoughts. I think we have two more hands here. Agnes, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, good afternoon from my end here from
Good afternoon.
Nigeria. I agree with, I support the last speaker. I support what she said. There should be some level of regulations so that things will not get out of hand. So in as much as we encourage innovations, there should be some restrictions so that there will be a balance, just like the last speaker spoke. That balance is very necessary and very needed. Thank you.
Exactly. That's a very good point. There needs to be some regulations and there needs to be a risk assessment, right? Which is what we're going to discuss today. As we have 4 levels, for example, we can think of, and those levels determine the type of risk regarding to the activities being performed. So that's a great point that you mentioned this, because we need to have clear rules, accountability, and we need to have mechanisms to address potential harms as well. Cici, I can see still your hand is up, so maybe if you'd like to add something with us, you can now share your thoughts.
Yes. Yeah, I want to, Madam I want to say also we have to make open the field of AI innovation that as a competition, because more we have competition, more we have innovation. But we have the government has to follow the limitation of this competition. Because if there are competition, we can have more and more innovation for every aspect of technology based on AI. But at the same time, the government should monitor by regulation. That I would like to add to my opinion.
So thank you for sharing your feedback with us. Cici, it's so you're basically saying that we should not slow down like innovation, but the government needs to have regulations in place to create a more trustworthy environment, right? Which I think is very true. And this is also basically the vision of the Europeans AI Act. So what is the most important thing here? It's not about technology only moving forward or coming up with better AI tools that can help us to work more efficiently or maybe create faster solutions. We also need a legal framework and create accountability. So for example, if we create a robot that will be used for surgeries on human beings, but the robot's going to make a mistake, then who's going to be held liable? Because if we work with like tech tools, there can still be severe risks involved. Or for example, if the system is discriminating or if it will give you a very narrowed down answer because it's making a prediction or a content suggestion based upon not trustworthy data. So it's really important to make sure that the tools do meet specific type of legal safeguards, because how they operate and where they operate or where the AI tool could be integrated in could really form a severe risk. So the European AI Act basically is focused on a human-centric approach, and also it must meet some legal standards. So last time we discussed the Europe Fit for Digital Age and the rules it must follow. So we can think about human dignity, freedom, democracy, equality, the rule of law, and also respect for human rights. I think this is really important. And here you can see that the tools must take into account the equal rights we have as human beings as well. We discussed this last time, so I'm going to skip it for today's lecture and we will move on to the different type of levels we have and the different type of risks involved. So as we can see here today, that the core of the European AI Act is based on a risk-based approach. And how does this work? There are basically 4 different types of levels. And these categories are really important to understand because not all of them are accepted. The first one is the unacceptable risk, and that one is completely banned. The second one means there is a high risk involved. Then we have level number 3, which basically means there is a limited risk. And then we have the last one, the bottom one, which is the minimal risk. Now, it doesn't really treat all AI systems the same because it's linked to the system. So we can think of the pyramid model basically here. And the higher up you go, the more unlikely it is to be accepted because of the higher risk. So it's more about how AI is being used rather than the technology itself. So how you will use the AI tool is linked to the type of risk it has. And they all come with their own set of legal safeguards and the corresponding set of requirements. So the first one is completely unacceptable. Then we have the high risk, limited risk, and then we have minimal risk. So if we now look a bit deeper into the first unacceptable risk, what does that mean? We can think about something being unacceptable if it poses a clear threat to our safety, our livelihoods, and fundamental rights. So we can think about manipulation of human behavior. This is really important. But also of manipulation of opinions and decisions. So if you create an AI tool, for example, that can pose a clear threat to our safety, the tool will be banned in Europe completely. I'm wondering if you can think of any AI system that could be so dangerous or unethical that it should be banned straight away. Is there anything you can think of, like, do you have any example here of something you can think of? Maybe this will be created, but this will not be accepted. If you look at the list here. I see we have a couple of hands here. Che, can you unmute yourself, please? Che, can you hear us? I don't think the connection is working. So Ismail, I'm going to ask your opinion, please.
Yeah, thank you. I guess social scoring. Social scoring is one of them.
Hello?
That's very true.
I guess.
Thank
Hello?
you, Ismail.
Yeah,
So
can I
social
proceed?
scoring is correct.
Hello?
The other
Yeah, good
student
afternoon.
is. Oh, can I hold on so that you can talk?
Hello? Hello?
Hello, Che. I think Ismail still wants to add something. Can you give
Yeah,
one more
yeah.
minute,
Okay,
please?
let me proceed. Yeah, social scoring, yeah, is one of them. Then the other one is a real-time facial recognition in public. This shouldn't be accepted.
Correct, Ismail. Thank you.
Yeah,
That's the first one could be social scoring. And also real-time remote biometric identification, apart from some limited exceptions, like for example, maybe crime fighting we could think of, but they are very strict and limited. So these could pose a significant risk to human beings, a clear threat, and therefore they are banned. They are not acceptable at all. Thank you, Ismail. Che, I think you want to share your thoughts with us. Can you hear us? Che, can you hear us?
I know that in a communicate, the one I want photography now, the election team, they say, talking, nothing. Hello?
Hello.
Yes, good afternoon, doctor.
Good afternoon.
All right. Yeah, thank you so much. Based on my own contribution, I think that it is good for the governments to, I'll be talking on both sides, to regulate technology only on the aspects which are the things that are dangerous based on activities in their various countries. Because there are certain things which can be prohibited depending on the disadvantage of that particular thing in that country, which to a greater extent, any decent government cannot accept. For example, like those who are into scamming, who do a lot of deceitful things. I think if the government can be innovative enough, to come up with technology which can dictate most of those areas and they prohibit those who are involved in those activities, that would be good. Meanwhile, I think open innovation, is quite good because if on a daily basis, AI, is being promoted especially in areas of research when it comes to things that can promote economic growth, entrepreneurship, innovation in industrial areas, in medicine, and other aspects which, can make our well-being, to be okay. Then I think it's fine. So before anything is done, I think it is good for each government involved in this aspect to take time and regulate well before they take any decisions. Because at times, when a decision is taken in a hurry, you may end up realizing that you made a wrong choice when it's already late. So I
Yeah.
think that is a contribution I can give. Thank you.
Thank you, Che. Yes, that's true. Sometimes you can better take more time to come up with a specific decision before you're making the wrong decision. And also, for example, in healthcare, it could be really important. It could be used to improve the health system or create more better medicines. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. I think we have two more hands here. Tsitsi, can you hear us?
Yeah,
Yes. Oh,
I
Sissy.
hear you. Okay, so we are talking about the unacceptable risk the AI system right now. We have 5 components as displayed on your presentation. What I can say is, AI structure, architecture can run many functions. We have the machine learning to embed the AI function, and this machine learning got some layer like
about this
deep learning, reinforcement learning, generative AI.
20. So that is where I put
Awesome.
750.
Okay.
It was more like antibodies.
I think we lost you. I heard the first part. I missed the second part. I think something went wrong with the connection. Perhaps you can share your feedback with us in the chat so we can still follow up. Tsitsi?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Tsitsi, now we can hear you, yeah?
Oh, okay. So, in terms of unacceptable risks, I'm thinking about maybe AI-driven military applications that could cause some kind of violence to human beings that is unpredicted, or violence to animals, or destruction of property. I think this will qualify to be unacceptable. And I'm also thinking of the spread of false information, political manipulation, or anything that can cause threats to democracy or to the reputation of individuals. I think this could also qualify as unacceptable. Thank you.
Thank you, Tsitsi. Correct. And also we can think about vulnerable individuals, like minorities. We can think about children because they are not always capable of making the right decision yet because they are still developing their brains. We can think about social scoring of specific types of people based on behavior, socioeconomic status, personal characteristics. All these things are prohibited. If anything is a clear threat to the safety of human beings, it's also not acceptable either. So because of the time, I will now proceed. You can still share your thoughts with us in the chat, or maybe we can discuss them at the end of today's presentation, because we also need to discuss the other type of categories we have. So it's really important to think here about prohibited AI systems that could manipulate human behavior, or opinions or decisions, or that classify people based on social behavior. So these are all types of AI systems that are prohibited. Now, if you think about high-risk AI safety systems, then what do you think is the difference between number 1 and number 2? This is actually the next level, and it's the major focus of the AI Act, most likely, because they're not banned, but they face very strict rules before they can be put on the market or sold or even used in the European Union. And these type of AI systems must have a very thorough risk assessment ready. They must work with like top qualified data, and they need to have a maintained detailed log, but also human supervision. So if we think about high-risk AI systems, we can think about systems where a malfunction or a biased output could have serious consequences. So here we're talking about AI that is used in managing critical infrastructure, like transport, for example. We can think about safety components in product like cars or medical devices because they do impose a high risk. We can think about education. For example, a system that can score digital an exam of a student, and employment. If we think about employment, we can think about access to self-employment, for example. And I wonder if you guys can think about any type of AI tool that we could use for employment that could be deemed high risk. I will give you 1 minute to come up with an example. It's been in the news as well quite a few times why it could be really why it could have serious consequences if such an AI tool is used for employment opportunities, for example. Ismail, I see you raised your hand. Can you share your thoughts, please?
Yeah. Yeah, one of them is healthcare. Hello? Can I proceed again?
Please.
Yeah, one of them is healthcare, healthcare, and the other one, let's say law enforcement.
Law enforcement.
Yeah.
True. Law enforcement for sure, right? Law enforcement, because that's a very high risk. It can have severe dramatic consequences if they are not using very trustworthy, top qualified data under human supervision. And yeah, they must maintain detailed logs, like how the decision has been created or recorded. That's for sure. And yeah, I think that one is quite clear as well. Can we think about another example for employment? For example, if you're looking for a job, what could be an AI tool that could be deemed high risk? Tsitsi, do you have any idea?
Yeah, maybe a tool that discriminates against a certain sector or candidate,
What?
such as female candidates or persons living with disability, or an IA tool that can favor unjustly other sets of applicants over others, maybe based on race, on geography, etc. Thank you.
Thank you, Tsitsi. Yes, you answered the question. I was looking for the answer about CV, like sorting software. So for example, if you upload your CV, your curriculum vitae, to check if you are a good fit for the job application. If the AI tool, for example, is sorting all the CVs uploaded by the people, but it's using a discriminating framework, then it has a very high risk in the outcome it provides, right? So these type of tools are deemed high risk and therefore must have a very thorough risk assessment ready as well, and meet the criteria. Because, for example, if we would allow such AI tools without strict rules, they could malfunction or create biased outputs, and those outputs do have serious consequences for the people involved. I see one more hand here. So, Cici, I'm going to ask you to share your thoughts with us, and then we will proceed to the next category.
Yeah, this is a very, very relevant part of the AI risk in application use business area and the professional and like medical and so on, and employment, as you say, and but not register in the AU law. This is very important to register them in the database, because when we take the medical part, the medical part we can do the telemedicine. So the far how they call the far healthcare, people cannot move to the hospital, stay at home, and they can care him from at distance remotely. Yeah, to provide him care remotely. Okay, if there is any mistake for a sensitive illness of this guy, this person, so this is so very critical and very devastator. So that's why it is better to register any application, AI use application, whatever the sector, medical, agriculture, food procurement, and so on, because the, the human body is very sensitive to the food, to the healthcare, and so on. So especially in the medical case, we have so many high risk. We have many high risk. For the social media also, social media, we see people telling anything on the social media. So even against the government, against the society, and so on. So we have to rule all this in the database of AU. Not only AU, all the continental organization, apart from the European Union. So this is very important and very high risky. So we have to regulate them. This is my opinion.
Thank you, Cici. Yeah, that's correct, right? We need to regulate outcomes of people, but also, for example, the healthcare industry, or if we use AI tools for food or for transport or for the healthcare, it could have severe consequences. So we need to have a legal framework. We must maintain a high level of accuracy. And for example, when we share data, is there any cybersecurity framework applicable? We need to make sure that we can check the risks, and if we can assess the risks before it will be put on the market as well. Because if there is nobody hold liable, and people could be discriminated or have biased output that they will work with, it can have a severe impact on all of our lives, basically. So it's really important to understand the high-risk AI system, especially for law enforcement, for example, and the justice system. Like you just mentioned, I think it's really important, and we can see legal is also a bit more behind, because if you need to work with an AI tool for the legal industry, you must make sure that you're not creating any biased outcome. So the type of input you are using for the AI tool is really important to determine the risk as well, and how things are being processed. So it's really important to understand the different type of categories we have, because they all have to meet different types of obligations. So if we think about high risk, we can think of critical infrastructure, like you just mentioned, medical devices. We can think about employment, law enforcement, etc. And we can see that there are very strict rules that are applicable, like risk management, data governance, transparency, and human oversight, which basically means there must be human supervision applicable and available. And it's also important to take into account that these type of tools, they need to undergo like a conformity assessment before, a bit like a safety check before they will enter the market. So it's important that a high-risk system is transparent for the end user, has human oversight capabilities, and works with high-quality data to prevent bias. Now, I wonder if you would be us to design an AI system for example, use in university admissions, what specific risks would you need to consider to ensure it's fair and it doesn't discriminate? I wonder what your thoughts are, so I'm going to give you 1 minute to think about the question. Ismail, can you hear us?
Yeah, it has to be transparency.
Yeah, it has to be transparent. That's very true. Can we
Yeah.
name one more example?
Yeah, and again, to avoid bias, let me say biases, something like that.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct. In order to avoid bias, that's very true. That's why it must work transparent. So we need to know how it works, right? So we can consider the risks involved as well. Thank you, Ismail. Cici, can you hear us?
Yeah. Okay. This is one point I already developed before. I take the example of the chat generative pre-trained transformer, chat GPT. Okay. University students used to this AI tool to do the search, to do the maybe even thesis, even evaluation. So if you are, because we want to be fair in the university challenges, admission and so on. So if we want to be fair of this admission process, we have to use our own intelligence, our own intelligence, because you can not see a doctor doing the admission for degree, maybe PhD and so on, but using the medicine query or fraudulently getting answer of test from ChatGPT. This is not from his own intelligence. It's not fair. So when he's admitted, he's not based on his own knowledge when he got admission. This is very, very risky also. Very, very risky for the how they call the student skills, qualification. So it's very risky. Again, so all those that I can say.
Yeah. So it could be deemed either unacceptable or potentially high risk, right? Because it would need like at a minimum level human supervision, detailed logs, how it works and works with top qualified data. It could be very risky when it's used against us and if it's biased, if it's creating biased outputs. Thank you, Cici, for sharing your thoughts with us. I see we have one more hand. Steve, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, so I was thinking about we should patent our findings on what we are producing to expand on. Should we patent it?
Yes, can you repeat that, please, Steve?
Can you? Okay, you should patent your idea so that it is not duplicated.
Yeah, so it's not duplicated. Yes. Also, that's also important. But if you would be creating an AI system for, like admission for university specifically, how would you use this? Because if people would create a duplicate ID, this could be also a risk. Is there anything else you can think of in addition, Steve?
Well, the mere fact that how would you identify if you own the idea? You would have to you'd have to on each you have to put a note or a disclaimer that you own the idea.
Yeah, but that is actually something different, right? That's about protecting intellectual property or like an innovation, or for example, if I have an innovation or an AI tool that I would like to bring to the market, there are different ways how you can protect your intellectual property. But that's a different question than creating an AI tool for university admission. But it's correct, you could, for example, patent the ID, or maybe think of other type of legal safeguards to protect that somebody else is stealing this from you. Thank you, Steve. I see we
Thank
have
you.
our hand of Nicole, and then we will proceed to the next sheet. Nicole, can you hear us?
Yes, good morning. I can hear you all clearly. In terms of the AI system for university admissions, I was thinking that there should be some kind of feature to ensure that it does not discriminate against the country that the student is applying from, or the race of the student, or their background, their socioeconomic background. I don't know how that could be done, but that should definitely be a feature of the AI system.
Thank you, Nicole. That's a very interesting aspect, and it's very interesting feature to implement. I agree. I think it's really important to make sure that the AI tool is not discriminating any person applying for the university, trying to be admitted, and then they take into account the background of the student or other specific socioeconomic factors. These are things we want to prevent for sure, because it must enable a fair system for admission and not work against specific type of vulnerable groups, for example. So there are like different factors we can think of. It needs to work with trustworthy data, first of all. Most likely it needs human supervision at all times. And it will need to demonstrate how it created the specific type of output to prevent any biased outcome. Because as we can see, it's a high risk level at a minimum. Then the third level we have is limited risk. Now, what does that mean? It's basically here most important to think about transparency. So that means we know and we are aware that an AI tool is being used here. So if the tool is being transparent, that we're working with an AI tool and it's, for example, AI generated, or for example, think of a deep fake video, it should say that it's deep fake, for example, or it should be clear to the user at least. So we can think about labeling images or videos to avoid confusion here. And why do you think it's so important to maintain transparency for the limited risk? Why could it be so important to focus on transparency here? Ismail?
To avoid discrimination, number one. Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, to avoid discrimination, number one. And number two, to avoid biases too, or any hidden agenda, what is not proper, that need to be addressed.
True. To avoid discrimination and to be more trustworthy as well. That's very true. Also to prevent bias we can think of. Thank you, Ismail.
You're welcome.
Can you hear us? Do you have anything in addition you would like to share with us?
Yes, my thinking is you cannot just put on something on AI and you are not telling people that you are dealing with an AI tool. So a person needs to know whether they are dealing with an AI to take any safeguards or precautions that they can take before they proceed. So they have to do so from an informed perspective.
Yeah. And also it's basically about allowing people to make a better informed decision. So it's about being transparent to prevent any deception here. Number one. And then the second one is to allow us to make an informed decision. And by being transparent, we prevent deception, because otherwise people could believe that the surreal image is actually reality, and that could be really harmful or even dangerous. And it should allow us to make an informed decision instead of creating a decision based on fake news or things that are not transparent. So it's really important to understand that it's AI generated content, so we can prevent deception and you can make a better informed decision and not the other way around. Because of the time, I'm going to discuss the last category with you, which is basically number 4, the minimal risk. Now, if you think about minimal risk, we can think about the vast majority of AI applications like AI video games, AI and spam filters. There are no mandatory rules here, and there are code of conducts to follow. And we can think about spam filters, for example. The AI Act doesn't really impose mandatory rules here, but it mainly encourages code of conduct, which is the biggest item to remember. And it has a very minimal risk. So now, if we think about ChatGPT, then what can we think about? Like, what comes up into your mind? ChatGPT, I'm quite sure most of you are aware with ChatGPT. The European AI Act also calls ChatGPT like general purpose AI models, and they are also covered because the GP AI model will need to meet transparency requirements, like providing technical documentation, summaries of the copyrighted data used for their training. And some of those GP AI models, they have deemed systematic risk, and they could have a broad societal impact, but they have strict rules to follow and they need to undergo thorough model evaluations, and they need to report, for example, serious incidents. So that's really important to take into account that they're also regulated. Now, as we can see that the unacceptable risk, that one has been banned. The other ones, the other levels, what should you remember, or what could we see most likely more in practice? The most common category could be the high risk system, because they are quite regulated, and it's important for the lower risks to understand that they are transparent, so we know we are actually dealing with an AI tool like a robot or a chatbot. The minimal risk is unregulated, so think of the majority of AI applications, like the video games. These are not regulated. It mainly addresses the high risk system, so that is important to remember. And the end user must be aware that they are actually interacting with an AI model. Now, you're basically focused on the intended purpose of an AI system. This is really crucial to understand, like, what is the intended purpose of the AI system as defined by its provider? Because the intended purpose directly determines the AI system's risk category. So what is the purpose of the tool? And that determines if it's unacceptable, high, limited, or minimal. And it's really important to understand this link, because the intended purpose basically determines what level of the pyramid the AI tool is put in and what type of safeguards it must meet as well. So definition here is key about the intended purpose of the AI system. And what does it mean? Well, for the provider, it means it needs to meet, for example, conformity assessment, risk management systems, data governance, technical documentation, cybersecurity requirements. It must be transparent, and it must have human oversight applicable. So, for example, if a user deploys an AI system for a purpose different than what the provider intended, and this new purpose falls into a higher risk category, or makes a minimal risk system a high risk system, then the user may assume the obligations of the provider. So it places a very strong, clear emphasis on clear documentation from providers and due diligence from users to understand and adhere to the intended purpose to manage liability and compliance. So it's really important if you are working with an AI tool to understand the type of category it's falling into, what are the risks, what is the intended purpose, and how is it defined by the provider. We only have a couple of minutes left here, so I think we're going to discuss if we have any questions. So we still have some time, and I can see we have 2 hands. So I'm going to ask you if you can ask your questions, and we can continue with the last part of the lecture in the next lecture. For today, it's utmost important to understand we have different type of categories, how an AI system is classified, what determines the risk it comes along with, and how we can manage liability and compliance, like what type of safeguards do we have. So Cece, can you, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself so you can share your input with us. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I hear you. Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah. So the question is if there are any questions left about today's topic, because today we discussed the different type of categories we have.
Yes, can go out. Come on. Okay. No, I just want to say it's not easy to categorize the risk of the AI application use in business and human being, because we used to say the man who steal eggs can also steal a beef. So if we start by high risk, like the robot, when you use the robot, now you see Elon Musk, how they call industry start building 1,000 and 1,000 robots, as you can see on the social media, on YouTube and so on. So one day you can see this robot, maybe if there is misfunctioning, what how they call disaster they can cause. This is, we can say, high risk, like the bomb. Also, I thought at the second example. So this there at this point we can say high level risk. But now for the person maybe using ChatGPT, and like I say, instead of using his own intelligence, he use ChatGPT for any evaluation, for admission, university, and so on, for any test, for maybe for employment and so on. This also is a very high risk because it is not using his own intelligence. It's using is destroying his own intelligence. That's not good. That's not good at all. And this is high risk. You can say high risk of this.
Thank you for sharing
you can
your.
say high risk for this. So it's not easy to categorize because any limited risk or minimal risk can become high risk. Is that the conclusion I want to give?
Yeah, thank you, Cici. We are out of time, but it's correct. Like what you mentioned, it's really important, and it could be very difficult, right, to classify the level of risk involved. The majority of the obligations, they will fall on developers of high-risk AI systems. And it's really important to make sure that the classification is correctly, because this will also determine the legal obligations as well. It's still quite a new framework, so I'm quite sure that things will develop over time as well, because we are quite new to legal framework as well. And the legal obligations may not be set in stone yet. I think we have time left for maybe 1 or 2 more final questions, and then we have to round up for today. Golson, can you hear us? Golson, can you hear us? I don't think it's working. So Ismail,
Yeah, thank you so much for today's presentation. Yeah, I just have this quick question to back it up. The question, I just need clarification anyway. Now, the question is this: in what ways does the Artificial Intelligence Act promote fairness and prevent algorithmic bias? Something like that. So,
yeah, that's a very good question you're asking. How they can prevent these type of activities, right? Well, first of all, because the type of classification basically means what type of obligations are applicable and what type of regulations must be met, and also the type of monitoring, for example, or what type of supervision is involved. So if we have a high risk system, we need to make sure that there is human supervision present. And then also we should track and report serious incidents at all times. It must be monitored. So it is basically trying to create a specific framework how the AI system can be used and how it can be working like an AI tool put in practice. Because if there is cybersecurity applicable or human supervision, the entire process must be monitored. Things will be checked over time. There's basically an extra testing system. If it only needs to be transparent, but there is no monitoring active, then it could present a more severe risk. So the higher the risk is, the more type of legal obligations it must meet. This is how the European AI Act is designed. So the higher the risk, the higher the amount of safeguards are applicable. I think for today,
thank you.
out of time. Thank you, Ismail, for asking this
You're
very
welcome.
good question. We have discussed most of the important items of the European AI Act. We had some interactive questions left, and I want to thank you all for today for being present. And I hope you got a better understanding of the different types of AI systems we have, and that the high risk is prohibited at all times when there's a very severe risk for human being. And then most of the obligations are applicable to the high risk AI tools, basically. And I think things will develop over time as well. It's basically a set of global regulatory standards. So thank you all for being here today. If you have more questions, you can send them to me per email as well. And I'm looking forward to see you in the next lecture.
Thank you. Thank you.
Lynette, thank you everyone for being here today. Remember, we have a class